Welcome back to Bad Attitude C-10. Today I'll be giving you an update on what we did to remedy the problem with the TorqStorm drive hub that goes on our crank pulley. Alright guys, so if you remember a few videos back, I was drilling the crankshaft out to insert the 2 dowel pins that would secure our hub for the TorqStorm Supercharger to our balancer and crank. After I drilled it out and I went to insert the hub, I had interference with the internal snap ring of our 2-piece SFI approved balancer. So the issue was caused by the aftermarket balancer, not anything from TorqStorm. But here's what I did to remedy it. So if you remember in the instructions, I had this little jig that would line the dowel pin hose to be drilled up with the crank bolt. This jig would be the key to the remedy to fixing our problem. Alright guys, so here's what's going on. When we went to install our hub, as you can see, it will not go inside the balancer because it's hitting this internal snap ring right here. So I tried and called ProCharger and several other companies to see if they had a manual I could buy to space this out or change it and run their pulleys, and I had no luck. So here's what we did. Our balancer is a little more narrow than a factory balancer, so if we had a factory balancer, the part supplied by TorqStorm would have been fine. So this isn't a TorqStorm issue, it's a modification issue. So I knocked it around and tried to figure out what I could do, and then all of a sudden I started thinking, well, I could take that hub that we use to drill the dowel pins in the crank and utilize it as a spacer. So I started taking measurements and everything to see how far I would have to space the backside of this hub out away from the face of the crank. And it just so happened, this is our crank washer. And if you notice, let me clear this out real quick. I hope y'all can see that. It comes out to exactly 1/4 of an inch. So I went on ahead and pulled this off the crank bolt. I then put the crank bolt through the manual, hub, whatever you want to call it, adapter. I put this on the back and then I bolted it up. And sure enough, it gave me enough clearance to where this would bolt up to the crank, and it almost touched the snap ring, but I had clearance. So what I did, I have a friend up the road named John Goble that owns Goble's Braking Transmissions. I took the hub and the washer to him, and he basically measured from the washer down. You see there's a little recess on this to where this normally would go into the crank. So we measured from the base of this, added the washer length, and then I had him cut that adapter that we use as a jig to drill our crank out to those measurements. So then, to make it a clean install, he measured this ridge back down to this base that I had to measure, and he back cut the spacer that we made. So now, whenever you put them together, they sit flush. And whenever we went to go and put it back on, I did not take in consideration, since I added this much space, a bolt now is too short. So I looked all over the place and could not find a bolt. I went to Home Depot, Homeless Depot, whatever you want to call it, Lowe's, Richard's Equipment, and a couple other places, and I couldn't get anything anywhere. I found some that were 8.8 but no 10.9s. And then I called another place up and they were like, hey, I'll have you in an equipment place that deals with stuff like that. So I called a company called Holt, which is Caterpillar here in the Waco area, and I picked up a bolt that is perfectly the right amount longer, and then added a little extra. So instead of 1/4, it's closer to about like almost 3/8 longer, which is, that's cool, just more threads, who cares? And it is a 10.9, and the Bad Attitude C-10, I don't know if y'all can make this out or not, it will be sporting the cat logo. Go figure. industrial strength, dude. So once this was all said and done, I can now take my washer. We can insert the dowels. We can insert the dowels into this spacer, and then this spacer will actually face this way on the crank, and then we will put this on, and this washer keeps the dowels from coming through the dowel hose here. The washer puts force on it this way to where it keeps everything aligned where it's supposed to be. So now, since we added a 1/4 inch to these here, that now makes my dowel pins too short. Lucky for me, John had some dowel material at a 1/4 inch. So I now have dowels that are longer to make up for the spacer. So now I'll just go and zip this on real quick. I will torque it once we get the motor in the truck. I'm not going to try to hold this by myself on this engine stand and everything and torque it, but let's go over here and I'll let y'all see what we got. All right, guys, so I'm going to take the spacer. I got one dowel in it right now. Now we got both dowels in the spacer in. We're going to try to pop our hub on. Take our trusty bolt. Now we'll take our socket and the ratchet, and I'm just going to snug it up for now. Sorry about the wobble vision, guys, but as you can see, we have good clearance and it's not hitting the snap ring anymore, and we are seated. Now when we torque it down, it might move in just a little bit more, but it's still going to have ample clearance away from the snap ring. So the cool thing about using this 1/4 inch spacer is I can just get some 1/4 inch shim stock and shim the TorqStorm Supercharger brackets out a 1/4 inch, and my alignment should be perfect. So with our hub finally installed for our TorqStorm Supercharger, we'll move on to the next step, which is going to be marrying the transmission to the engine so we can try to get in the frame rails to do a mock-up of our transmission and motor mounts. So until then, please like and subscribe.